ref. That's he got the ball. Yes, good afternoon, Tottenham fans, or good evening, Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys, Dave, Johnny, Sam, and Sean. This evening, we're going to talk a little bit about James Madison with his season being over. What do you rate of his campaign? What do you rate of his contributions on the pitch, or is the drama surrounding him? Basically, overshadow what he does on the football pitch. And with Man City reportedly interested, would you cash in? We're also going to talk a little bit about Guglielmo Vicario as well. He's coming under a lot of criticism lately. Hasn't returned back from injury well. Made a number of mistakes across a number of games since his return. Should basically Postecoglou stick with him and show faith in him, or should he be dropped? And should we be using the Premier League games now to look at Kinski or Austin heading into next season? We're also going to talk a bit about Mikey Moore, generational talent or overhyped, and what we should do in order to continue to develop him next season. And if we have time, a little bit about Mona Solomon's loan deal, whether we should look at him in pre-season or not. And then also, hopefully we have time to ask the boys what they think ahead of the big game tomorrow evening. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get straight into it. I will bring up your comments as we go along. Number way for you guys to get involved, get your questions in, get your comments in, or super chats or whatever, and we will bring them up as we go along. And all I ask is that you smash the like button. But look, let's get straight into it, and we will start with James Madison. We will start with you, Johnny. James Madison's season is over due to injury, but let's take a moment to reflect on what's been a roller coaster 24-25 campaign. In just 45 appearances, Madison has contributed 12 goals and 11 assists, making him one of our standout players while he's been on the pitch. But let's also not ignore the drama surrounding him this season either. A fallout with Postecoglou, which saw him drop to the bench earlier in the season. He was spotted out at the darts during a tough period with the team. Also called a fan a wally off the back of it famously as well. And his public spat with Roy Keane and his clear frustration at being subbed off against AZ Alkmaar. So Madison has been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons at times this season. It's been a season of highs and lows for him and plenty of controversy. So with all that in mind, how would you sum up Madison's season? Is he the dynamic match-winning playmaker that we hope for, or does the drama that comes with him overshadow his contributions?
I'm just going to say, I'm just going to give the same as what Leicester fans told us when he arrived, and I've said this before, so if you've heard it, apologies for repeating myself, but he's noticed 33 and a third. Basically, 33%, 33 and a third percent, fantastic, 33 and a third percent injured, and 33 and a third percent coming back from injury. But that set aside, right, when he's on fire and when it means something in a big game, he's there. But he's gone missing in many, many games this season. He was definitely missing in that Liverpool game the other day. And I really didn't like what he said. I mean, there's been lots of things that you could pull him up on. The rolling around, the diving, the moaning to referees every 2 seconds. But the ignore the fans comment after 5-1 at Liverpool, ignore that noise and that toxicity, I think is out of order. Fans were entitled to be upset. You see, the thing with these guys is they're so happy to take the adulation when it's going great. You see Madison running up to the fans and giving it large. Yet when it's all going Pete Tong, they don't want to know, or they have a go at the fans for saying stuff. Look, personally, he does not play enough games to warrant any sort of adulation, in my opinion. You look at someone like Bruno Fernandes, he's there week in, week out, right? Getting fouled. 12 goals and 11 assists, though, Johnny. That's nothing to be sniffed. That's a good contribution from him. I'm not saying that, but you need him. Look, Dave, we're 16th in the league, mate. Okay? All right? I know. And I hear what you're saying, and I'm not going to disrespect the goals and the assists. But it's not enough, mate. It's not enough. You can't turn up in patches and then go missing, right? You have to be consistent. I could say the same, I guess, about Bruno Fernandes because they're down in 15th place. But, he shows up week in, week out most of the time. And I think that, we can't rely on him going into next season as being the only creative midfielder in our squad, because it's going to happen again. I've lost count of the injuries. There are other players who are suffering from the same, repeatedly getting injured. I'm sure we all know who they are. But for me, no. If they're going to pay that money, sell him 60 million. Thanks very much. We'll take Eze. Thank you.
Just on, you said, we can't have one creative midfielder. And then I want to get Sean's take on it as well about all the controversy surrounding them this season. Just quickly on another cam. Donnelly, he's had a very good season at Leyton Orient, recently voted their young player of the season. I mean,
all day long.
Do you think he's good enough to lay claim or push James Madison?
I 100%. I said, that Jamie should come back. I think the likelihood is he'll probably go on loan in the Championship. But to know if you're good enough, you've got to be given the opportunity. And I'd like to see him pre-season playing in that 10 role because he's got a sweet foot. He can play in a whole variety of positions down. He can play up for the left. He can play through the middle. And he's creative. And second up, right, I've said it already. I'll say it again. I'm not saying he should start. But if you see Mikey Moore play for the academy, Mikey Moore can play through the middle. Yeah. And if we carry on getting injuries and we need to break teams down, I'd be pushing Mikey into that into the 10 role late in the game if we need to open teams up. Yes, he did it against AZ Alkmaar, which aren't the greatest team out there, but we saw him create against Everton. We saw him create in that game, and I believe he can do it. We saw him West Ham, brief cameo. He already looked better than most of the other players that were on the pitch when he came on. And I think he's just got to be given a chance. And the same goes for Jamie Donnelly. But I'm sure, listen to what Sean and Sam say, but we cannot go into any season in multiple competitions with having one creative player. You just can't. Same, you can't have one left back. You have competition.
No, look, I absolutely agree with that. In modern day football, I think it's more and more important to stress that you need a good competitive 25-man squad if you want to compete over 4 competitions. But down to you, Sean, to that point, look, James Madison, he has been patchy this season despite still having good output in terms of goals and assists. Do you think he would become a better player if he had more competition? Do you think he would become more consistent, or do you think he's the sort of player that would maybe crumble under that pressure and maybe throw his toys out the pram a little bit?
Yeah, it's difficult with him. Like, my mind on him is like, I don't like the way that he communicates. Until I didn't like the way he communicates. I felt like it was a lot of me, a lot of Roadrunner-esque stuff. And for someone that, his output's been good, but his input really hasn't been. His effort, his contribution, his work rate, his effort to get back. Those things I think have been very much wanting, especially when you've got midfield issues elsewhere that need the support of him to come back and do a job. And you know that he can when he wants to. When the cameras are on and it's a big game like the Man City game, he'll pull out a worldie, right, and do all of the things. But then the next week he can't be bothered because it's not televised game or whatever else. Whenever he's asked, whenever I've watched his interviews, he's always talking about himself being happy with his output, but the team itself isn't good enough, and the fans thing, all that stuff. I used to think was like a massive level of disrespect towards everything else apart from him, right? But then recently I've watched a couple more interviews of him and I'm still not settled on it. I don't know, but I feel like there's also just a level of brutal honesty with him, almost like he's a little bit on the spectrum, and that he doesn't really like have that kind of that forethought around like what he's saying, who he's saying it to, and how it's going to be perceived. And at his stage of his career, he should have had enough experience now to figure that stuff out. But when he was asked about Matisse Tell, he was asked about Bergwall, and whilst he was complimentary about the players, he also took little digs at them as well for their general demeanours and behaviours and all that stuff. And it's just like at that point I was like, wow, maybe it's not just him versus us or him being all about himself. Maybe he's just brutally honest with his answers, which is fine. But at the same time, there's consequences to that, which is that you can be misinterpreted, and he doesn't like being misinterpreted, and obviously, doesn't like the kind of the way that some of this stuff's represented. But I think you have to be a little bit more self-aware. In terms of the player, I think he's the best that we have at creativity, but I don't think he's that good. I don't think he offers too much. And, it comes down to like, what do you want to see from him next season? His injury rates are obviously patchy, but then everyone else's are too. Does he get better with more competition? Maybe. He didn't react well to being dropped by Ange at the start of the season. That clearly was sulky nonsense. And so probably to answer your question directly, I'd say no. I think he thinks that he's entitled to his role in this team, and that he thinks he's above a lot of the other people in this youth-centric model. And unfortunately, you have to earn it, right? And I don't think your output is the only demonstration of how you earn it. I think that everything else about you, especially if you're vice captain of the football club, needs to be also polished. And I think there's a lot of like unpolished behaviour. But then, like, where do you land with what do you want to do with him, right? Like, do you want to sell him? Do you want to buy him? Well, again, I don't really have that much faith in Tottenham's ability to go and find better for cheaper or whatever else. Also, his injury now is basically put paid to any summertime exit. So, yeah, I think like it or lump it, I think he's going to be here for at least 12 months.
So let me ask you a follow-up question on that, Sean. You said you don't think Madison is that good in terms of a creative role. Look, we've had some great creators in the past, Christian Eriksen, Luka Modric, players like that. What do you think Madison is sort of lacking?
Well, small game desire. I think that he's not that bothered about games at the bottom half of the table. Like I said in my first answer, I think that his decision making at times can be better. I think that he rolls around on the floor a little bit too much and can act a bit like sort of pissy. And as I say, I think that like all of those points are, for me, not so much about him as a footballer. I just think there's elements to his character that I think are a little bit questionable. And as I say, as a vice captain of the football club, you need to be better. You need to recognize what you're a representation of, and respect the fact that you are a short-term custodian of the badge and the number. And I think there's been more, like, you can forgive the odd slip up here and there, but like there's been a number of occurrences of demeanor that I haven't been impressed with from him. And if he thinks all of that stuff gets washed under the carpet because he can get 10 goals and 10 assists or whatever in a season, that's not enough for me from someone that has that caliber and that expectation of him, like, where he thinks everyone should just, shut up and tolerate what's going on. Just to me, it screams of of immaturity.
Do you know what? I agree with you in terms of a lot of what you say there. I don't think Madison realizes or recognizes that he is one of the leaders in this team, and he certainly doesn't act like it. Now, look, is that all on his fault? No. Walking into Tottenham, he shouldn't automatically be walking in here as a guy that you should be depending on within the leadership group, especially after being relegated and stuff like that. And also, I think many Spurs fans, when we signed him, we were all maybe fearful of his attitude a little bit. Where have you been surprised with all the off-field dramas that come with him, like the spat with Roy Keane, being out at the dart, Sean, calling fans wallies, and stuff like that,
That's what
that
I mean,
alone, like, would
all
you
that
sell
stuff.
him off that alone? Because at Tottenham, where we're going now with this sort of youth-centric model, right, you need all focus for the right reasons on the football club and not the reasons that he sort of brings with him.
Yeah, and the fact that you have gone down that path of youth-centric means that the few players that you have that are 27 years old, obviously 27, I still make mistakes today that I was making when I was 18. I haven't learned from my mistakes, but then I'm not in the spotlight like he is. At 27, obviously you're not like a fully mature, fully grown up man and all that stuff. But I think that relatively, when you have that role of being one of the few leaders on the pitch, leaders by the actual entitlement of the armband or the various connotations of that, and then all the off-pitch stuff, like, you just mentioned 3 or 4 examples of it. All of that stuff just demonstrates a guy that is out for himself, that doesn't read the room. And like, what are we doing here? Like, we're on the back of like 4 or 5 game losses or whatever it was in January or December. And he decides to go out with another guy who's also, for someone who doesn't work hard enough, right? Who's living off of the hard work of other players. I think the people that criticize Solanke, they should probably like factor in that a lot of Dominic Solanke's output is probably recognized and registered in people like Brennan Johnson's output, right? Because of the work that he puts in, the tireless, that guy is a professional. That guy is someone who is a workhorse. That's a team player. And those 2 guys sodding off to the darts after whatever it was, like our 4th loss in 5 or something, and then reacting to correct criticism from a fan saying, "Shut up, you Wally." It's just, it to me, it just stinks of like, who do you think you are? I'm James effing Madison, and you're just someone else, right? You're a nobody, so go F yourself. And I'm like, you know what? You are only where you are because of the fans that put you there. The money in our pockets goes into theirs. It's not Daniel Levy's money that pays your wages, bro. It's ours on some form or fashion, whether it's your Sky Sports subscription, your season ticket, your shirt sales, whatever. It's our money that pays for those people. And they only drive that nice car and they only have that pretty wife and they only have that lovely life because of us. And they should recognize that. And they don't. Well, not all of them, but he doesn't. And that's why I think that he shouldn't be even if he is here next season, he shouldn't be a vice captain of the football club.
I mean, when you look, when you got Roy Keane, who in my man is a legend footballer, right? Yeah. Whatever you think, I'm a Spurs fan, right? But Roy Keane, love him, right? I wish he, played for Spurs. He's a Spurs fan, he tells us. But when he comes out and he singles James Madison out for his attitude on the pitch and how he conducts himself on the pitch and calling him out, he's right. So for James Madison to at one point have one goal and think that he's calling out Roy Keane, mate, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, look at me, Roy. Hey, who's laughing now?
Yeah, when he did that, it was a tap-in. It wasn't like it was a worldie.
Yeah. And he done nothing for games after.
Yeah, he did nothing after that, right? He did nothing after. But you haven't silenced Roy Keane. There's a reason, James Madison, why you've been dropped from the England squad, right? There's a reason. Right, you're a legend in your own head, in your own mind. Okay, get your head out your ass and start doing it on the pitch. For me, it's a no. Yes, he scored goals. Yes, he's created goals, but I need someone with heart and passion that's going to ride challenges and be present in more games next season. And it isn't him. Unfortunately, as Sean said, that injury has probably robbed us of any chance of getting rid of him.
Yeah, 100%. Sure, they're worried if he's even going to make preseason in time. So you're absolutely spot on.
Definitely going to be behind the curve until probably November, December.
Especially, Johnny, as you said, 33 and a third, right?
Right.
So even if he gets back in September, you're going to get the other third of him, which is getting back from an injury. So all you get is second half FC from him next season at best.
Yeah.
And, to Johnny's point, that's why we need a second playmaker in the door. But James Spurs fan makes a good point. He says, for some reason, creative players always seem to have baggage. Look, it seems to be that way down the years, but the
genius is flawed. Genius is flawed. Always has, always will be.
Yeah, it is, but he's not like that match winner like a Gascoigne was, where you sort of allow him that rope. You know what I mean? He's nowhere near sort of that guy. Like Cantona at United, you again gave him a lot of rope because he was winning games, he was dictating results. James Madison doesn't have that, right? He's not doing that. But Sam, I know you're maybe a bit more of a fan of Madison. Some would say the criticism here on the panel today is harsh. Postecoglou for a while was taking him off in periods when we were chasing games, which is in effect not really allowing James Madison to shine. That is where that's the money you paid for to help dictate games and get results on the board. So, I mean, what have you made of Madison's contribution? Because, like I said, 12 goals, 11 assists, it's not to be sniffed at, man.
Yeah, look, I mean, I saw Sean put in the comments that he rated Madison's season as a 7. I think I'm probably there or thereabouts with that. I think that, what's he on, like 22 or 3 goal contributions across all competitions? I think when you're looking at it based on, he was brought in to kind of half the burden of what Kane was leaving us. Maybe he hasn't quite done what we needed him to, and maybe that's why he's held into a higher regard of criticism, kind of similar to how I criticize Romero, because that these players can do it. So when they don't perform consistently, there's a frustration there, maybe slightly too much on both players' parts. I think there was an interesting comment about the baggage for attacking midfielders. I think that for attacking midfielders, they're often supposed to be seen as like an enigma, right? The kind of guy that can create a spark out of nothing and win you a game. And I think that a lot of these kind of players, they're like Marmite for a lot of people. You either really like them or you really don't. It's funny because I think I say that, but I'm probably kind of in the middle with James Madison. I was really excited when we signed him.
Has he lived up to expectation? Or has he sort of let you down? Because look, when we signed him, there was a big fanfare around him. Everyone was like, "This is the sort of caliber player we should be bringing in."
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think he has lived up to expectation, but I think that is on a few external factors to his own game, rather than just being solely on him. You know, we've mentioned the sort of in and out nature of his position in the team. You know, we don't know if there's stuff going on in the background, but he's always one of the names that's mentioned when, you know, unrest is spoken about in the squad. So you don't know 100% whether, you know, the right environment is there for him to flourish, basically. And I also think system based. I've mentioned it a few times. I just think that he's not playing in the role that he was playing for Leicester. He's basically playing as like a defensive player who's being asked to create. And I think that he suffers as much as we suffer because he's having to take the ball from the left back spot and drive forward rather than sitting in the pocket between the striker and the midfielders to play the ball in behind. And I've said this before, I think that one of my biggest criticisms for Ange is I just don't think that he can coach a midfielder, because he thinks that all midfielders should be able to play the same role, or, you know, variations of the same role, rather than having specificity for particular roles, which is why a lot of us have complained about why haven't we got a 6. But for Madison, I think that, you know, a lot of times, even under Poch, I would see us play teams like Chelsea, and I've mentioned it before, players like Mason Mount would pick up these spaces in between, you know, the defense and the midfield, and they'd cause us havoc and make that sort of third, fourth man run where they go undetected. Whereas, you know, we've kind of grown into playing this horseshoe football, which, you know, we used to criticize Arsenal for. And it's just kind of obvious. And I think Sean mentioned it last week. We always attack down the left-hand side, really. And there's basically players are thinking, if I can stop certain players, then Spurs don't really have anything. And I think we've kind of seen that. Although that we are, you know, up there with the top scorers of the league, I think that we would have scored more goals if we had more variation. But more on Madison, I think maybe because I'm slightly younger than you guys, not that I'm basically the same age as Madison. I think he's like a couple years older than me, or a year older than me. And I 100% take all the sort of criticism that you guys have put about his attitude, in terms of, you know, his celebration to Roy Keane and everything. But I also see it from maybe a more youthful standpoint, where it's like, if someone criticizes me, even if they've, you know, done it and seen it and everything, and I'm just like a nobody coming into it, I'm still going to have like a sort of, you know, a fuck you mentality, basically. And I think that, especially as I mentioned, with midfielders like that having to have some sort of edge to their game, I think that he's using that to spark himself into life. I know it didn't really work out, and I'm not necessarily saying that it has worked. I'm just trying to look at it from the other side.
No, look, I get that. I just think, you know, with Madison being around the games years, being in the England squad, you know, he's no stranger to criticism and how to react to it. I just think, you know, honestly, I think it's disrespectful to someone like Roy Keane with what he's won in the game and stuff like that. You're on mute, Shani.
Sorry, no, I was just talking to some.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I think it's massively disrespectful to someone like Roy Keane. And in fact, you know, I think what you should have done is actually if you're smart, went and got Roy Keane's number, text him and said, like, you know, let's have a conversation. Where can I improve the game? Where can I go to the next level? You know, that's what you should be doing.
Exactly.
And the fact that he has that attitude shows me that he's all out for number one. He doesn't really care about much around him. And to be honest with you, the amount of times I've seen him on pool channels on YouTube, dart channels, and everything else, I'm absolutely sick of it. Concentrate on your football. We take a couple of comments here. We've got this from Darren Canty. Really appreciate you becoming a new YouTube member, my man. Really appreciate it. Box office is in the house trying to stir the pot again. His usual antics. Says, does not put my prediction on his video. First of all, to clear that up, I put the text in and you put it in like 45 minutes later. By that time, I already had it recorded. Everyone else put theirs in the day before, and it's not my fault. you were late. So it's not that I missed it out. It's you put it in way too late after I had it recorded. So if you're going to come in and start a report, at least make sure it's factual. I've warned you about this before, Alex. And then he also says, and then he doesn't get me on to debate me. Look, this is a fixed panel. You know, these are the guys that I've picked for these panel. But don't worry, Alex, your time is coming, my man. Your time is coming. I need plenty of entertainment.
Coming soon, yeah.
Look, the season's nearly over. I need plenty of entertainment over the summer. I need to be told plenty of times how much more shit Tottenham are. So I'll reach out to you, Alex, on that one. And then he follows up by saying, you're becoming worse than Spurs talk show, Johnny. Talk the talk, but
What did I do?
Get a drive-by shooting.
What have I done? Get a flyby. Yeah, what's going
Hey,
on?
Sean, stop this breathing malarkey you keep doing. I told you, stop breathing.
Obviously,
Yeah,
obviously, Johnny and Sam aren't doing enough to provoke Alex. They haven't got the rat of him yet. So
Oh,
guys,
Alex has had plenty of goes at me. It's all in good jest. All in good jest.
I heard that Alex likes me.
Alex does like you, actually. He's very fun too,
That's what he
actually.
told you.
Yeah. Last time I saw him outside the stadium, he went, "Mate, have you seen that Sam?"
Yeah.
Like, that Sam guy. He's just
it's a known fact. Well, what he says to you ain't quite what he says to us.
Handsome guy, full of confidence, got a good moustache.
But Alex, I will be there, this weekend. So hopefully I see you. Don't go running. We've got Phil P says, fun fact, I was the business at the age of 27. I've no doubt you were. To be honest with you, you're still the business now. I still think you're living your life like a 27-year-old, to be honest with you, Phil P. Big yourself up. And then RHT chiming in as well says, love it. Laughing while losing sums him up. He was rewarded with captaincy and the start. I feel like if Dave were his teammate, he'd punch him in the face. Look, I don't like the
headlock, Dave. You get him in a headlock, right?
Do you know what it is, right? I don't like the fact he was laughing when we're losing. I didn't like the fact he was at the darts when we were losing, but everyone told me I was just being grumpy or an old man and everything else. I just think it sends off the whole perception matters in football, especially to fans. And Madison, I don't think understands that. I think he's just out there having a good time, with his boy Brennan Johnson, and I don't think the results at Tottenham actually affect them. I think they just play their game, go home, forget about it, and then come into training the next day and gear up for the next game. I don't think they actually go home and take it personally or stuff like that. And if Madison was my teammate, to be honest with you, I would have had him up a long time ago. I would have hanged him on a coat peg and I would have told him exactly what I thought of him. And I probably would have just bitch slapped him once or twice and then said, right, we're going to cop on now. You're going to be with me or against me? What way is it going to be? Because to be honest with you, look, I can take a player that, makes mistakes, right? It happens. We're all humans. Everyone makes mistakes. But what I can't take is a player that has ability but has a piss poor attitude and doesn't want to get the maximum out of themselves. It's one of my biggest bugbears. One of my biggest pet hates with Ronald McDombele. Really peeved me off. So much ability, more ability than all of our squad, but just love burgers too much. And it's just like someone just sat him down and said, look, Ronald, stop eating burgers, maximize your career, maximize your earnings. After that, you can become like the R9 and go to all the McDonald's you want. But until then, maximize your ability. It's one of my big pet hates with players with so much ability. And that's why I get so angry at Madison, because he does have the ability. He just doesn't drag it out of himself. And he's one of them players that before he knows it, it'll be too late. His career's down the pan, and he become a little bit of a journeyman towards the end of his career. So he needs to buck up his ideas. But guys, I want to keep this moving. Let's move into Guglielmo Vicario. Now, of course, Tottenham have conceded 57 Premier League goals this season. Not all down to Vicario. And of course, playing behind different backlines doesn't exactly help. But we have only kept 2 clean sheets across all competitions since the 2nd of February, since he's returned. We conceded a lot of cheap goals, and Vicario has been responsible for a few of them. His form since he's returned from injury has been absolutely piss poor. His distribution has been piss poor. He's made mistakes for both goals against Nottingham Forest. He could have done better with the Bodo Glimt goal the other day. Should have done much better with Bowen's goal against West Ham. And also at Wolves, he was at fault for 2 goals as well and really got us off to a bad start in that game. So basically, I think the question is, guys, is it time for action? Does Postecoglou need to drop him, or does Vicario deserve patience? And anyone can come in that. Whoever is fired up the most, take it over.
I was just going to say, the mistakes are really frustrating. There's no 2 ways about it. We all know them. We've all seen them. But when you look at the stats, the fact is that he's made more saves than any other keeper in the Premier League this season, which is a terrible indictment of, basically the state of our defence this season. Where would we be without some of his outstanding saves? And there have been many, many outstanding saves this season. So is that a counterweight to the mistakes he's made? Are they forgivable? They're not forgivable in isolation, because you're looking at them, we're losing games, whether it be Forest or, conceded against Bodo or West Ham. No, because they're magnified in that particular moment. But when you look across the season, time and time again, he's been making outstanding saves. So I feel that basically that gives him a stay of execution at the moment, but he's got to improve his game. I mean, he's 28 years of age. There's lots of his game that isn't quite right. He's got to be stronger in corners and free kick set pieces. He's not strong enough. And as we've seen, the distribution in the last couple of months from the back with his feet, I don't know what's happened. It's just gone a bit AWOL. I remember sat there watching Kinski in his first game, and the ball came to him and he pinged the ball out wide, and everyone was going, "Whoa, look at this guy. Look how amazing he is with his feet."
That's because you watched years of Hugo Lloris not being able to, put it on the 6
I know, but we all got up and were like, "Oh my God, a guy who can kick a ball." Like, that's how excited and how deprived we have for someone who can play with his foot. Although, unfortunately, it only lasted about 2 weeks with Kinski, and we were back to moaning about him when balls were bouncing over his arms. Look, nothing's perfect. And, with the keeper, when you make a mistake, it's magnified. I just think that the entire squad seems to have gone on holiday in the Premier League games, and it's all slack, lackadaisical challenges, exposing him. There's no excuses for his mistakes, but I think he's got to go into next season. But I'm agreeing with you, Dave. I'd like to see Kinski given a game. Listen, when I look at Josh Keeley and how well he's done for Orient this season, and you could say, "Oh yes, but it's League One." A save's a save, right? And he's made plenty of them. He's got a goal and an assist already this season.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic keeper. And I just wonder whether Kinski coming in, who's only about a year, 18 months older, again, this is another example of blocking the way, or we're going to sell him. But I'd like to see Kinski given a couple of games potentially between now and the end of the season. So, just in case Vic gets injured, and we got this scenario of having to throw the kid in against Man United when we beat Bodo tomorrow.
I think with Kinski, with Brandon Austin and how well he's took his minutes, and young Luca Gunter as well, I think it will mean that Josh Keeley will either force a move out, or we probably will look to cash in on him this summer and probably raise funds heading into the window. But Vicario, look, I do think we should use the Premier League minutes to give Kinski an opportunity to see if he can, show a bit more than maybe what he did in the run that he did have, just to put a bit of pressure on Vicario and see how he actually handles it. Because I think that's the making of a goalkeeper. Arsenal done it with Aaron Ramsdale. They brought in David Raya. The two of them were competing, and at the end of the day, the best keeper won. And they got it right. They put the pressure on Raya to see how he could handle it, and he handled it. And he haven't looked back since. And he's pulling off. He's probably one of the best goalkeepers in the world, to be fair to him. But Sean, with Vicario, he's a very good shot stopper, and I'd argue probably one of the best shot stoppers in the world. But his distribution and the way he comes out, tries to claim crosses, flaps at a lot of things. His overall game, there's a lot of improvements in that game that needs to be made. Like, for instance, you look at David Raya, the amount of times he comes out, collects corners and crosses, catches them, relieves the pressure. Vicario,
he's not
even
that
if he
tall
does
either,
get he's punching them straight out, to the edge of the box for them to pummel shots back in on us. But you did bring up a question on Devil's Advocate yesterday that, would you look at maybe bringing in another goalkeeper? I mean, look, we can give Kinski games between now and the end of the Premier League, but realistically, I don't think he's going to be ready to be number one next season. So would you give Vicario longer, Sean, or would you be looking at maybe making a change in between the sticks this summer?
It's a difficult one. Do I think Vicario is that good? No, I don't. This notion that he's a good shot stopper, name me a bad shot stopper in the Premier League. It's bread and butter. It's the number one thing.
Fraser Forrester was useless.
Was he? I don't think he was that. I think he was horrendous. I think he's confident when he was on form. He was brilliant. When he was out of form, when he dropped his confidence, he became a nightmare. But I think Vicario, all goalkeepers are confidence players, right? When things go wrong, they go wrong for a while. When things go right, they go right for a while. That seems to be sort of a tail of the tape for goalkeepers. But I make the argument that, you know, to be a good shot stopper is like the bare minimum of what you want from a goalkeeper. I don't understand why it's that difficult for them to spend enough time on the training ground just doing banging balls under pressure into channels, like rinse, repeat. Like apparently we rinse and repeat Ange ball or whatever 1,000 times a day and don't really do too much else. Why can't the goalkeepers be a participant in some kicking? It can't be that difficult for people that are around footballs all day long to learn how to kick the ball to an accurate destination. Sorry, you want to come in? Sorry.
Yeah, can I ask you a question on that, Sean? Because I've often said the same about Brennan Johnson. Stay back after training, learn, get one of the youngsters to stay back, pay him £100 and try and beat him. You know, try and bring different avenues to your game and stuff like that. But I do hear in a lot of interviews from players leaving the game, you know, over the last couple of years, that they're being asked not to. They're being told not to because of all this red zone and stuff like that. So where do you stand on that? You know, with the injuries that we've had this season, are they right not to be out there doing extra things like that? Or should a player be like, look, I don't really care about the red zone. I'm taking my career into my own hands and be out there doing it?
I mean, you look at the players that made it to the very best level, right? On a technical level, Ronaldo, he would stay back. Cristiano Ronaldo, this is. Yeah. He would stay back for 2 hours every day and bang free kicks. Just bang free kick for like hundreds and hundreds of times. So that when he got the ball in the game, he knew how to kick the valve and how many worldies did he score, right?
Yeah.
David Beckham used to bang a wall, even when they were watering the grass at Manchester United on certain days in the afternoon. He'd go and bang a wall against the red bricks, bang a ball against the red brick wall outside the car park because like it's just a dedication to your craft. I'm not saying that you have to be like doing sprints, but like you might be in the red zone, but like just kicking a ball a couple of times, like doing what you like as a goalkeeper, especially. There's no red zone in goalkeeping. Come on, it's a madness thing. I just think that like it's just, and this is not just aimed at him. I just don't understand why every goalkeeper at the Premier League level isn't an excellent shot stopper and B, able to carry the weight and kick under pressure. It can't be that madness. But the fact that I've never played football really, so maybe I'm wrong on that. And I'm happy to be corrected by someone who knows, if it is that difficult. But I just can't believe it's that outrageous. In terms of Vicario, do we sell him or do we give him a stay or do we bring someone else in? I wasn't that impressed with Kinski. This idea that he was this wonderful kicker of the ball. We saw one or two in that game against Liverpool. And then from the Arsenal game, when he had the collapse in confidence, everything fell apart. So I don't really have any confidence in him. For sure, you go with Vicario tomorrow and also in the final. So therefore, do you use the next couple of games to test Kinski or do you give the next couple of games to let Vicario bring his confidence back on some level? I don't know. It's a muchness to me. I don't think it matters at this stage of the season. In terms of do you go again in the summer, we've already got a lot of goalkeepers on our squad, too many goalkeepers in my mind, but none of them are really head and shoulders above anybody else. Yeah. And in terms of where do you go to get a better one, I don't know. Look, there's a name out there that I've always really liked him, but the fact of the matter is that he is behind in the pecking order for Italy. And that's I really like Alex Mere. I've always thought he's a really good goalkeeper at Napoli, and he's on a free transfer in the summer. So there is an option there. He's 28 years old, but he has fallen behind Vicario in the pecking order behind Donnarumma, right? So it's Donnarumma 1, Vicario 2, and Mere 3. So it's I don't know. To be honest, mate, like I don't like it's a problem. It's a problem, but the solution is not clear to me, if I'm entirely honest.
And you know what? Look, it is a problem, but I'm not sure it's the most immediate problem that needs to be addressed. But, Sam, this is where I like Vicario. I like the fact that he screams, he shouts at corner kicks sometimes. Johnny's caught him on video, pulling people into position and stuff. I like that from my goalkeeper. However, for him to survive at the Premier League level, he has to learn to be able to deal with the physicality, coming for crosses and stuff like that. And that's been scrutinised at large parts last season where we were losing a period of games. He was costing us from that. And also it's been the same this season. I mean, that one against Nottingham Forest coming out, behind Chris Wood, it's absolutely unforgivable. And it's rinse and repeat with this guy. I look at other goalkeepers around the league. They're coming out. They're relieving the pressure on the back line by claiming them. Not punching away, not flapping, by claiming them. Again, do you think Vicario can improve on that? I'd make the argument, send them over here for the summer to a Gaelic football team. They all go up and catch the ball under pressure with people competing. I think that problem would be solved. Or is this a problem you think we will need to look at a bit further down the line once we've sort of addressed other issues, like Sean's maybe saying?
Listen, I see some of the setup plays for training. I see the 4 defenders in a line with some guy throwing a ball up for the 4 of them in a line to practice the high line. It's pathetic, right? And there's some of them pissing around. And then I see the goalkeeper where some guy's standing there backing into Vicario in the warm-up before the game. I don't know. Like Sean said, get onto the pitch and keep practicing and practicing and practicing. Yeah. Get knocked around a bit. Stand in front of dummies. Set up 5 or 6 players, put a ball into the box and say, get through that, right? Learn how to man up. And the other thing
out there, those big ones, the rugby league players.
Just hire some guys from round the corner, right? Just to stand there, knock him about a bit, throw some balls into the box. Yeah. The other thing is, Dave, you say he does a lot of shouting, but what I've noticed is there's a lot of shouting with the kids. Don't see him shouting so much against Cuti Romero or any
Judo.
No, but I notice I see him shouting at Archie Gray, shouting at Bergval, shouting at some of the kids, right? Okay, sometimes you got to take some responsibility for your own mistakes. I don't see him. I wouldn't see him do that against Bentancur or Cuti Romero because he'd end up back inside his goal. So yeah. I think.
No, I agree. I agree with that. Look, I don't mind it personally. I think it's good for them youngsters. Yeah. I think they should be backed at and stuff like that. It's good schooling for them to learn and stuff. Sam, let's get how you feel about Vicario.
Got my Vicario top.
I've said before about Vicario. Nice. I like his attitude. We've said about players that want to be at the club, and he clearly does. Whether that's necessarily a good thing, because I see people in the comments saying that he wouldn't start for other top 6 clubs, whether it's because maybe we're above the level that he actually is. And to Sean's point, yes, I think he is a great shot stopper, but that is kind of the be all and end all of being a goalkeeper. If you can't save a shot, then what are you doing? But that being said, like you said, Dave, about the he has only kept 2 clean sheets since he's come back from injury.
Yeah.
How many did he keep before that? 4 in like the entire time. Yeah. We went like 20 months or something stupid without keeping a clean sheet. So I don't know if that's an indictment of Vicario's ability in goal or just the gung-ho kamikaze football that we play that leaves 2 defenders back. And a lot of the times, look at that Chelsea game. I know it's the barometer of pretty much everything since Ange's come in, but that Chelsea game where we went 2 men down, Vicario was unbelievable in that game. Yeah, he made so many saves, and not just saves. He was coming out like 40 yards to make last ditch challenges on their strikers. It was I'd never seen anything like it, and unfortunately since then I don't think we have seen anything like that from Vicario. Not that you can play at that level all the time. I think back to the Chelsea game, even before the Wolves game and the Nottingham Forest game, he was absolutely atrocious in that first half, but then made 2 or 3 really good saves in the second half.
Yeah, but by then it was already costly though, right? That's
exactly. I mean, what did we lose? 1-0 in that
2-1.
Game?
Forest, you on about Forest?
No, the Chelsea game.
Oh.
I think it was 1-0, wasn't it?
Yeah, 1-0, yeah.
Look, I kind of agree with Sean about maybe we could replace Vicario, but I don't think he's so bad, which is, I guess, a pretty damning indictment to say I don't think he's so bad that we need to immediately replace him. I'm not filled with confidence by him, but we've gone out and spent, what was it, 18 million on Kinski in January.
Yeah.
The club's not going to go out and buy another goalkeeper.
Not now,
I just don't see that happening. And as Sean said, we've got 50 goalkeepers on our roster. So, it's just there's so many other holes that need to be plugged before the goalkeeping option. I mean, as much as we hate talking about those South London Red Boys from down the road, they
I think you could
had
say that.
they had a stronger starting team than us. They didn't need they could go out and potentially replace what's his name? I can't even think right now.
Raya.
No, not Ray. Who's the other one?
Ramsdale.
Yeah, they could go out and replace Ramsdale exactly because they had spent decently in other positions over the last couple of years, whereas we haven't. And again, the fans seem to be calling for a mass exodus of players at the club. There's a good 5 players at least that people are saying, or there's a good argument that they should go. And we're going to end up with a bunch of 19-year-olds as our base of the squad, and 7 goalkeepers in backup. And as much as these young players that we have in our ranks look really good, and the ones who have been on loan have performed really well, the problems that we've had this season have shown that we have had an experience and a mentality problem in a lot of these games. No one knows how to do it, especially with players like Romero missing for vast periods of the season, which maybe draws back on Vicario. As much as he's not been there and done it, I feel like his mentality is kind of like, I'll take whatever you throw at me, as much as his confidence in his own ability maybe has waned in recent games. I do think he's made of the right kind of minerals for for the squad basically. And on Kinski, I think that he was very solid in that first game. In the was it Liverpool, the first game he played? And I think that he was playing on his own style in that game, taking the ball, brushing it with his studs, flicking it over players, doing whatever. And then I think that after that game, they've kind of told him the system is kind of, this is how we play it short, we do this, we do that. And maybe that's also affecting Vicario, because in Italy, I feel like teams go more direct, whereas we're building up more from the back. And again, we're asking players who don't really know how to play that system to do it. And look, ultimately, they're going to need to learn to do that. But I try not to judge them too harshly based on the fact that they're having to learn something new. Although in Vicario's case, this is now his second season, so you would have hoped that he'd have learned by now.
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, with Vicario, I think we'll all agree, he'll probably get next season. And I'd like to see him in front of a more of a settled back line across next season, see how he gets on. But it's one that I think we should keep an eye on for sure. Big up Emerson Real's #1 fan. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well, Nick. Big up Jose as well. Good to see you as well. But guys, I do want to move on the conversation. I want to start with Mikey Moore, and I want to start with Sean, because if I'm correct and I've listened to Sean correctly, I think Sean maybe thinks that Mikey Moore is a little bit overhyped. Am I correct, Sean?
Sorry. Not the. I'm not saying that the player is no good. I just think that Tottenham fans have a tendency to think far more of one of our own than what has been demonstrated on the pitch. And I'm not saying that he's not going to be excellent, and I'm not in any way saying that he's not good or terrible or any of that. I'm being misrepresented and misinterpreted. The conversation has been: is Mikey Moore better than Matisse Telt? Is he better than Odebear? Should he be a starter for Tottenham at this point in time? And my answer is, I don't think he has shown anything that makes him head and shoulders above the other people. And just because he's 17 and come through our youth team, that doesn't give him special dispensation, other than in the dead rubber games. For sure, play him in the 10, experiment, whatever you want to do, get him ready for next season or get him ready for, the next phase of him. But at the moment, if you are good enough, then you are old enough is fine. But once you are in the first team's consideration, you have to be compared to the other people that are options in that position. And the manager has to make the decision around what is the best for the team and the best for the situation at play. And all I'm saying is that I don't think Mikey Moore has done more than Matisse Tell. I don't think he's shown more than Odebear. I don't think he's better than Sonny. And so at the moment, him being third or fourth in the pecking order is about right. And I think that Tottenham fans
and Matisse Tell are much better than him, though.
I don't think either of them. I don't think any of them have been fantastic. So it's not a case of that they're light years between them. I'm just saying that, first of all, we paid £10 million for Matisse Tell as a loan fee, even if we don't take up the option. There's maybe a consideration there around getting some sort of value for it. There's also this is what I get this kind of stuff all the time. Like,
Sean, I was going to argue with you, right? I actually think at Tottenham Hotspur, there's more of a preference to give young teenagers that we paid money for the opportunity rather than actually give some of our youngsters the opportunity. And I think that's where maybe we've misallocated some funds, because I think with Odebear, Matisse Tell, I'm not sure they're miles better than Mikey Moore. And I just think, like, you combine, like, you take Odebear's fee of 30 million, the 10 million fee that we spent on Matisse Tell, you could probably go and get an established player for that, or use them funds elsewhere to fill other holes rather than, because I think we've got a real problem at left wing. We've got like 6 players there, including Timo Werner. Now it's a real backlog.
Yeah, so again, though, I don't disagree with what you're saying around that the club may have a preference to doing it the way that you're suggesting. I'm talking about the fans. My perspective is the fans are sitting there saying, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we giving these? Why isn't a JA playing? Why isn't Mikey Moore playing? Why hasn't, yada, yada, insert youth team player here? Why hasn't Archie Gray played more in the 6? Why has, what all of these young players are, and Archie Gray less so because he's not one of our own necessarily, but of the youth team, a lot of people were saying the same thing about Dane Scarlett. Right, like, why isn't Dane Scarlett getting minutes? He went on 3 loan deals and flopped on all of them, right? And so I just think that there's a tendency amongst the fan base to overhype the people that come through the youth system because they haven't been seen enough, that they expect that there's we're missing out on some gold mine. And I would just argue that the people at the club are closer to the levels than we are as fans, and there might be more than just a logical reason as to why we haven't seen them. Just before I finish off the point, I know and that's fine. Listen, I know that my opinion on this one is not popular. I'm used to being on the unpopular side, but the popularity of an opinion doesn't have any jurisdiction with its veracity. That's just life, right? There's plenty of options, plenty of unpopular opinions that have been proven to be right, and plenty of popular things that are proven to be silly. But what was I going to say? Just quickly, there was a lot of rumours out an hour ago that Rishi didn't travel on the plane. He's now been pictured that he is actually in Bodo. So everyone that was panicking about that, Richie's back, which is something that you usually hear me saying. But like, Richie's back.
Do you know what? I'm just buzzing because I was gonna have to go and re-record my predicted lineup that I spent hours recording and editing. So I'm absolutely buzzing with that. So you've made me very happy. And do you know what? I just think Richie's going to be crucial tomorrow. I think he's got a part to play for sure. So I'm delighted to have that option there. But Johnny, I could see you shaking your head and you were ready to get going there on what Sean had to say. I mean, do you think that's a bit harsh on Sean? Because I sort of sit on your side of things when it comes to some of these academy products, especially the ones that we've produced, likes of your Donnellys, your Mikey Moores. But Mikey Moore inside the club, everyone thinks he's a generational talent inside England's underage setups. They're raving about him, but he has played what, 70? He's made 17 appearances across all competitions and has only contributed 1 goal and 2 assists.
I think I'm biased. I'll be honest with you. Maybe I'm looking at it through rose-tinted glasses, but I just remember going to watch the academy game, and when I first saw him, we talk about players that make you get up off of your seat. And I was sat there and I was watching the game and I saw him pick up the ball and drive through the middle of the park, beat 3 players. The balance as he beat those 3 players, the shifting of the weight of his body, the way he barrel-chested reminded me of Gaza. And I said that, and the guy next to me just said, first say, calm down, mate. I just said, but that's who he reminded me of. I can't help it. That's what I just saw, right? And obviously, since that moment, I kept an eye on him. Look, I think the virus that he had and the condition that he had was serious enough to push him backwards. I mean, it hospitalized him. So, it was serious stuff. And but I just think, I don't know, you know, what's more dangerous for opposition? The unknown. And I just think there's something in him, the unpredictability. And I'm not advocating for Mikey to come and start tomorrow night, yeah? But what I'm advocating is that he comes on and gives minutes, because I actually do think he can play as a 10. I really do. We know he can play it on the left-hand side, but I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him. Look, him and Callum Oluwasi, right, they've come through the ranks together since they were 5 years of age, all the way through the Spurs ranks. Callum's not getting any minutes. You know, he's
we fended off, actually, Johnny, to get these guys on new contract, by the way. We're not talking about crap clubs, you know. With Mikey Moore, there was interest from some of Europe's big clubs, and same with all the
clubs. Germany, Spain, like, you know, all over. Man City were interested in him, you know. And Callum, look, those two players are great, okay? But, you know, it has to be tempered with the fact that he is just 17. You know, he's 18 in August. But I do think that he has something about him. I really do, and always have done. I'm a big fan of Callum Oluwasi as well, as I said, and Ajay. But for me, it probably, as readiness now, it would be sort of Jamie, Mikey, Callum, Ajay, right? Sort of in line with each other. But I think he can do a job. I think he can do a job. Look, if we had Madison playing and Bergvall, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'm looking to think outside the box because we don't have any creativity. And what I do know is if you surround him with a Basuma and a Bentancur and you give him the ball and give him that pass protection, he's going to run at defenders and he's going to cause trouble. He's going to win free kicks. He's strong. Don't think just because he's 17 he ain't going to do anything. But no, he shouldn't be. He's not ready to be starting playing every week, game in, game out, right? I'm not saying that for 1 minute. But I think as an impact player for his age, he's ready to make impact in games right now. That's my opinion.
I agree with that. I think, you know, many people forget we wouldn't have got to this point in the Europa League. We wouldn't have got out of the group phase if Mikey Moore didn't step up. He stepped up in the majority of them games, you know, creating goals, assisting goals. And honestly, I think he created another 3 or 4 golden opportunities for Werner in the Europa League campaign that would have enhanced his assist stats. You know, I think Sonny missed a couple of big opportunities off the back of Mikey Moore's brilliant play as well. But I agree with Johnny. I think, you know, he's shown this season that he can contribute to a squad over the course of a season. Is it too early to start him? Yes, of course it is. He's only 17. But, you know, great managers that recognize talent like that, you dip them out and you take them in and out at the right times. With Mikey Moore, look, he hasn't been helped by whatever illness he came across and stuff like that. But I do think he's good enough to contribute and to develop going forward. I think we do have a generational talent on our hands. It's how we decide to handle it. We nearly fucked up with Harry Kane, by the way. We were nearly ready to let him go to Leicester for 200 odd grand. You know, we don't have the best reputation of recognizing what talent we've got within our ranks and sort of developing them through. It's only when a manager really stands firm, like in Harry Kane's case, Team Sherwood stood firm, you know, that ensure that belief that they really make it through. And I do think Mikey Moore, to an element, is probably waiting for that. Is Ange going to be the guy? That's where I'm not so sure. But Sam, I mean, what's your overall thoughts on Mikey Moore's contribution in general to the squad this season? And what do you think we should do for him going forward next season? Because a player of his age will need more minutes than what he's got this season going forward to be able to kick on, to be able to develop. Will he get that at Tottenham next year? Or do you think it is a case where we might have to loan him out?
I think under a different manager, he would get more minutes.
Okay.
You know, we saw him play really well in that first 60 odd minutes against AZ Alkmaar, right? And then you could see his fitness wasn't there. I know obviously after that he had the virus, but there was a period of time where it was like you could have played him. And even after the virus, there's been a lot of games where it doesn't hurt to just throw him in. You know, not from the start. And, you know, I think to answer the question directly on the overrated side, I think right now his ability is overrated. but his potential does seem to be there to be, a top player. I think that it falls back on something that I've said before after the Elfsborg game, which was when you see nights like that where Mikey scores, Ajayi scores, and Dane Scarlett score, they're boys through the academy who are Tottenham fans, and there's an endearment from the Tottenham fans to see other Tottenham fans win. It's kind of similar to what I was saying about Vicario earlier. You want to get behind people who want to be there and fight for the club. So when you're seeing these kids come on and, they're like almost on the verge of tears, having scored, their goals in front of the South Stand, you can't help but not get behind them. And I do agree with Sean. I think that and I'm guilty of this. I'm not blaming anyone else more than myself. Like, there is a tendency to overhype like players that come through the academy, and I look at and I think that it's a different circumstance. But I look at the likes of Lewis Skelly, for example, and the likes of Wanyeri.
Well, I was just going to say that, Sam, at Arsenal, they've brought through youngsters, even Smith Rowe before that. They use that as a core of the foundation of what they've built now.
Yeah, but Dave, look at Liverpool as well. I mean, like Conor Bradley. I feel like one thing that Klopp wasn't afraid of was to bring and blood some of these players in. And I think that that's something that we've really lacked over the last couple of seasons. I mean, look at last season when we had the first injury crisis and we loaned players like Phillips out and we don't give Dorrington. I know Dorrington had a serious injury, but we don't give these players any minutes. But in bigger teams, they're giving these players minutes when the game state calls for it. Why, when we're going 4 or 5-0 up against Southampton, for example, are we not just bringing on a bunch of kids? I know that
it's an opportunity to develop them. Every minute is valuable to these guys, Sam.
Exactly, and that's where I feel like the difference between the Arsenal players and our youngsters is. Our youngsters could very well be better than the Arsenal players who are getting England call-ups, but we're never going to know that if we never give them any minutes. And it's if we don't get Europe next season, then I think we should loan out all of these youngsters because they're going to get no game time. But the question is, like, you have to look at it, I guess, from a sort of tactical standpoint as well, in terms of if you loan these players out, they're at a pivotal time where they it's something like they need 3 years before 21 or something at the club. To be considered club trained.
That's only if you bring them in from a foreign league. That if they come through the academy.
But I thought it was something to do with club trained. They need to be at the club for they have to actually be in the
that's
squad.
only in like Papa Matasar's case where we brought him over. Yeah, that's if a player comes through the academy at Tottenham, they'll always be classed as a homegrown player. But for a player like Papa Matasar who comes over, Bergvall, if they have 3 years in the first team between 18 and 21, then you can classify them as homegrown in Europe, I think, moving forward. Or is that the Premier League? One of them anyway.
Yeah, maybe I'm getting confused because I'm thinking about, like, would it be the same case for Ashley Phillips where he would need to come and have spent 3 years or whatever before 21 at the club? But this is my point though, rather than risk, I know it's a risk, but it's a calculated risk because you're resting players that desperately need rest, or you're actually, you need to play someone else because rather than play Emerson Royale and Ben Davies as your centre-back pairings for months, you could actually bring in players who are actually defenders. They might not be as experienced, but where do we think they get the experience from, right? And so it's been frustrating for me the last couple seasons to see the hype that we have for these young players without actually giving them substantial playing time to see if they can even reach some sort of potential. Like, I know that you're saying Mikey Moore's output, what would you say it was? 1 goal, 2 assists. If he actually had time on the pitch, and I know that I agree with you, there was a few, even in that Alkmaar game, he made 2 or 3 really good chances that Werner missed. And
Arabad as well, or French Paris, one of them.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of chances that he has made where it's not come off for him, and I think he has warranted to get 10 minutes here or there at the end of games. He doesn't have to play every single game, but why bring him in, let him play 60 minutes or whatever, and then not see him again for months.
Yeah.
Again, obviously, I know that was the virus, but it's a substantial, for a substantial period of time. It's just frustrating.
Yeah. No, it really is. And look, that's one thing where I think Tottenham are missing a trick. I can understand maybe in years gone by, but age groups that have won at under 17s, under 18s, and under 21s, they're proving that they're the best in their age group, around the UK at least. And I do think there are a couple, like we've struggled for homegrown in terms of European squads for years. We've had to register like 4 goalkeepers and stuff like that in order to stop doing that and actually have a full squad that you can contribute to Europe. Eventually, you are going to have to develop 3 or 4 players to clip, to take off the club train. Listen, I'd argue half of Tottenham's problem right now, we don't have enough players to actually care for the club, within that squad. And I think that's something that we should be looking at moving forward. And if we don't, I think I need an inquest on why we haven't brought any of these players through, because we've never had generations like this. And then there's another one coming through, Miracle Adewale. He's a super talent, super talent. And let's see how he develops.
Byfield, what a fantastic player he's going to be. There's loads of fantastic players, but look, it doesn't matter a fig unless you have a manager who's willing to embrace them. And the problem you have is managers are in the self-preservation business, and to take a risk and play kids is hard to, Poch was unusual, did it Southampton, brought countless players through. I'm the same at Spurs. He made Winks look like a decent player. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Winks was falling out at the Bernabeu.
And then get thumped. What was it? The Bayern Munich 7-2 at home got destroyed and made look like a girl on the pitch. But look, I do want to round this up, and I do want to end this. So I want to, just to everyone's quick thoughts heading into the big game tomorrow night, where Tottenham are potentially 90 minutes away from making our second European final in 6 years. Big game tomorrow. These two on the right-hand side or left-hand side, whatever way you're looking at the panel, are heading over to Bodo tomorrow. So we will start with these guys. We'll find out what their thoughts are heading into the game. Will we get the job done? And we'll also give them time to plug themselves again. And my man Big Rich is there. That's him training on the artificial surface tonight, is it?
Yeah. So to all the people, my man out there, I was sending me
Mo was wrong.
Was sending me pictures. So
Love it. Well, look, let's start with you, Johnny. I know you have places to be and stuff like that. So what's your thoughts
I'm disappointed.
about tomorrow's game?
Yeah, no, listen, I'm a bit disappointed. I was looking forward to getting there, doing a bit of whaling, some, the Northern Lights. I was hoping for snow, blizzards, that sort of shit. Unfortunately, there's a heat wave. It's 8 Celsius. It's raining, no Northern Lights, and speaking to the people who are already out there, it's like a Holocaust. Like suddenly the world's ended, the end of our days. There's no one walking around. It's all quiet on the Bodo front.
For now,
it's a bit surreal, but I'm sure 400 Tottenham fans will liven the place up. 8 degrees. It's a heat wave. Listen,
you think you get the job done, Johnny? Because there's a lot being made about it.
Listen, this will rate as one of the most embarrassing defeats if we don't beat them. It's as simple as that. It will go right up there.
We did go out to Zagreb with a 2-0 lead, and we blundered that.
Yeah, listen, it's the same as the Dynamo Zagreb, the Colchester. It could be the Tamworth. It is right up there. And, listen, tomorrow night, come what may, at in our time, it will be 9 o'clock, 9:45, 10 o'clock, 11:45 our time, 10:45 London time, if there's no extra time. It's going to be a very emotional time. It's going to be an emotional night. We'll either be jumping up and down and we'll be celebrating we're going to Bilbao, or we'll be crying in our Eskimo milk. This guy's got to go. And I'm saying right here, right now, if he loses tomorrow night, the plane should fly without him, and he should be made to cycle or walk back to Australia.
Well, look, hopefully we get the job done.
We're going to do it. Well, listen, Sean and I backed it. We booked Bilbao, right? I'm fully confident we're going to score a goal. But let's be honest, right? Their 4 main players are back tomorrow. That's Patrick Berg, his midfield partner, the striker who scored their goals. The only doubt is their number 1 centre-back. Will he be back? He wasn't in the first leg. Will he be back? It's going to be tougher.
Is that his name? Will he be back, is it?
Will he be back? Will he be back? Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
We got him from France.
I can't lie. I am a bit nervous going into this game. I just need Tottenham to get over the line and you know, give me some faith heading into the final, because there's a lot of fans that are so overconfident, but there's so many warning flags. And I just think their late goal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was maybe a bit of a warning sign. It's not over yet. We're not going down without a fight. But look, Sean, you know, PH family says he wants to see you guys in the stands tomorrow with shirts off around the head if we get through tomorrow. You looking forward to the trip, though, boys? I mean, that's a big one tomorrow.
We're excited.
Yeah, no, I think Johnny was talking about like missing out on the northern lights. I won't be missing out on the red lights. Tell you that one, right? Hanging around a certain part of Bodo. Got my deposit. Oh, I'm only kidding. It's gonna be an awesome experience. Got to be up. The Uber's picking me up at 4 a.m.
Just quickly, the fact that you know there's already a certain part worries me. It means the research has been done.
I ain't joking. I'm not really doing that. I'm going to hire a clubbing, and I'm going to go seal clubbing and see what's going on. You know, when in Rome. No, it's going to be an awesome day. Uber's picking him up at 4 a.m. Going to meet Johnny and Henry at 5 a.m. and Benny Boy from We Are Tottenham TV. And there's a couple of guys who from the Spurs talk shows.
It's all on the same plane.
Yeah, yes. And there's a couple of guys that I know that are on the plane as well.
It'd be like that Soul Plane movie. Did you ever watch that?
Yeah.
With Snoop Dogg.
I think it's going to be like the plane to Zurich on from it's gonna be a fun day. It's gonna be a fun day, and I worry about Henry's liver. I mean, I worry about my own liver, but Henry's making proclamations that the second he gets to the airport, he's checking in, he's going straight to Wetherspoons and ordering 6 pints of Stella. I said, mate, you haven't got no idea what you get yourself into, and he's bigging it large. So you know, I've had bets on at what point in the afternoon is he going to have a nap, because you know he's not built for this sort of weather, is he? But yeah, I can't wait. I personally think that we're going to go through, but I do think that we're not going to win on the night. I'm not going to say how.
I think so. I agree. You're bringing your liver. You're bringing your liver. I'm bringing the onions.
Yeah, it's going to be a great day, though. Listen, this is what memories are about as a Tottenham fan. I've been to a fair few away days. It was certainly in the UK, but I've been to a fair few in Europe over my life, and this is one that I'm going to remember, and hopefully it will be for all the right reasons. And then, like I say, 2 weeks later, I'll be catching up with my Helga in tomorrow, and then hopefully getting for a second date in Bilbao. But it's going to be fun. Svetlana, Helga, and they're all coming out. But it's going to be great. I can't wait, and hopefully we'll get some good content as well. So yeah, thanks for having me.
All I want to see tonight is this.
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't know how you guys are actually going to sleep tonight. I'm already getting sleepless nights thinking about being over there for the Palace game. So and that's a dead rubber. So I don't know how you guys are going to sleep tonight. But Ed Case is saying that he wants you to document it all, Sean. So nice good match day vlog. I think, there's good hour worth of content there, from meeting up in the taxi all the way, to the game and stuff like that. Johnny, can I just ask you to throw your links? For some reason, I can't log into my social accounts right now. I think Jack might be using them. So can you just drop your links in there and we'll plug them for you? But guys, make sure you do get over to Spurs Talk Show. Shawnee, I did put the link in here for him. Make sure you get across. Hopefully we will get to see the whole trip to Bilbao. That'll be absolutely brilliant. You're also going to get your transfers, news, views, and clues, as he likes to call them as well, and some live shows, I presume, on his return. And then also Football Inc. as well, guys. It's this is Sean and Johnny together, where it's not just Tottenham, it's all football. So make sure you get across and smash the subscribe button on these two channels for these two great gentlemen. And guys, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it. Johnny, if you just get the links, drop them in the private chat for me. I'll throw them in there for you, and you can tell the people which ones you want them to get over to the most. And then Sam, My man, I'm putting your link for your Twitter in here as well, so people make sure you get across and subscribe to Sam. He loves, engagement after game day, so make sure you go and wreck his head after the game. Sam, tomorrow, you confident? You're nervous?
I don't know. I'm confident, but now that I'm like sitting here you're asking me about it, I've got butterflies, and I think it all comes down to whether we score or not tomorrow. I think if we don't score, then I think we're in trouble. But I think that if we can get a goal, it doesn't even need to be the first goal. I just think if we can get a goal, like it settles so much where you're thinking, okay, we've scored on this artificial pitch, and I just that for me, if we score, I think maybe we lose 2-1 on the night, but we go through 4-3 on aggregate. We get battered by rival fans saying that we played Bodo in a semi-final and we only won by 1 goal, and then we go and win the Europa League, and we just little one of these climbing up the bus stops in N17. And we're all there for the trophy parade. So yeah, I think we're gonna do it. Like we're gonna do it, boys. Like we're gonna do it.
Do you know what?
The trophy... Stay with me, guys. We're gonna do it.
We're gonna do it.
Yeah, I hope we're going to do it. I'm really, like I said, I'm really, really nervous heading into this one. Everything is on the line here, our season's on the line, But interesting, because the Europa League final is before the end of the Premier League season, in it. So the trophy parade is going to be an interesting one, because I think we've got a couple of games left after the Europa League final. So if we do win it, are they going to do it, that day or the day after, or the weekend, after winning it? Because if they leave it too late, it's sort of just going to settle down a little bit, and the joy won't be there, especially if we lose some of the Premier League games off the back of it. So timing of that and scheduling that will actually be interesting from the club's point of view. And guys, I did put Sam's link in there. Like I said, make sure you get over, and then I'm putting Johnny's links in here as well. This is his Twitter. I'm going to put his Instagram in. This is the one that he's pushing lately as well, so make sure you get on that. So Johnny H3232 on Twitter, aka known as X now. We've also got his Insta here, Talking Tottenham 1882, and we're also going to put, actually the TikTok is the one he's pushing, actually. Sorry, he wants you guys to get over to his TikTok. This is the one. It is 1 second, Talking Tottenham.
There you go.
It's Talking Tottenham 1882. So for all of you 21st century dwellers out there, make sure you get across to TikTok, smash the subscribe, because this is the one that Johnny is pushing. And Shawnee, you don't need to put your hand up, my man. You can cut across me.
Well, out of respect. Please, sir, can I have some more? Johnny, you asked me a really interesting question regarding Jamie Donnelly. Did you find out the answer? And if not, do you want to put it out there now and see if anyone in the chat or these boys knows the answer to it? You're on mute. About Jamie Donnelly. Donnelly.
So basically, what I said to Sean was, if anyone knows out there, so if Jamie Donnelly gets knocked out of League One in the playoff, is he eligible as a homegrown international that doesn't need to be declared in the squad? Is he eligible to join the squad for the final to play in midfield?
No, he won't be registered. He had to be registered.
But he's under 21.
Oh, yeah, he is under 21s. Oh, there's a bit of research to be done, actually. Do you know what? I'm sure someone will put it out over the next few weeks.
A banging question that neither Johnny nor I knew the answer to. So I wanted someone in the chat to go, well, actually, Rule 17.243 of the FIFA UEFA code suggests that actually Jamie Donnelly is perfectly available to come in and play.
I would assume the fact that he's been out on loan with Leyton Orient and that, I would assume it's probably a no-go. But you know what? To your point, maybe there is some sort of technicality there where maybe he might actually be able to play.
He's club trained. He's under 21. Okay, and
his loan will have finished at the end of the season.
Yeah, and he hasn't played any European football yet, and doesn't need to be asked. So I'm asking the question. If someone can give me the answer, I'd really much like to hear it.
So, guys, if there's anyone out there that knows the whole entire UEFA rule book, even though they make it up every year, please get in there and let us know. Just quickly, we take these from the members. Trinidad says, what dare will each panel member carry out if Spurs win the Europa League? I think maybe not dare. What's the right phrase? Sean, you're more on this than me. You probably you know
What
the dictionary.
what celebratory condition? I'll tell you what mine will be. I will come home with a wedding ring on my finger and a Norwegian princess on my arm. How about that?
But you know what? You haven't got two bad trips. You know, you've got Bodo, Glimt, and Bilbao. So if you can't find the misses on any of them, then you know, and we've got issues.
I'll get a señorita or I'll get a Helga. Either way, I don't mind. If my kids are talking Spanish or talking Norwegian, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
Absolutely love it. To be honest with you, Trinidad, I'll probably break down and cry for a few hours and then come round the next day and probably just, to be honest with you, probably won't see me for about a month. I'm just being brutally honest. You probably will not see me for about a month. I'll just be too busy celebrating on such a high. So, you know, that's probably the case for me.
I'm willing, if we win the Europa League, to come on here and say that Ange Postecoglou is the Messiah.
Do you know what? There would be about 10,000 people waiting for that stream to start.
They're waiting already.
They're waiting already,
Dave.
The whole of Australia will be waiting for that one.
Hail! Ange Postecoglou.
Sam, what state will you be in?
I don't know. Maybe I'll shave my head. Something like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I did say if we ever won like the Champions League, I'd get the Champions League tattoo, but I don't know. I haven't got any tats, so I'm not sure for Europa.
I'll get Henry. I'll twist Henry's arm to getting a Ange Postecoglou tattoo on his arse cheek. Okay?
No, we've got to upgrade that. What we need is an Ange Postecoglou mural on his back. You know, we need
like Richarlison's tattoo.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, we need to change that. And then Dropkick Your Teacher, AKRST, says, for the entire panel, what are your thoughts on us going to penalties? I don't think people realize how screwed we are if we go to penalties. And this goes back to my comments about why I heavily disagreed with Eddie. Richie and Sonny didn't travel, so we're likely to have a front line of Udabur, Solanke, and either Kulu or Johnson. Well, good news is Richie has traveled now, RST, so that's good news. So by the time it gets to penalties, that lineup will be extremely young. I don't see the front line playing the entire game, so penalties will likely consist of Matisse, Tal, Johnson, Kulu, Moore, whoever is in midfield, Romero, Danzo, Spence, and Porro. Does this not concern anyone? Or top of that, is likely going to rain and make the pitch slick? So basically what he's asking about, is anyone concerned about us going to penalties? Because I think to his point, we haven't really seen this team in a penalty shootout whatsoever. So we don't really know who can really step up. But look, I think in modern day football, to be honest with you, a lot of managers just sort of ask in the moment. It's like, are you confident? You know, and it's whether the player wants to put their hands up or not. But anyone on the panel, you concerned? Look, I think if we go to penalties, I think we'll bottle it quite honestly. I think we got to get the job done in 90. I think if they even take us to extra time, potentially they could get it done before penalties. I think this got to be done in 90 minutes. But anyone concerned about penalties?
I'm just concerned about scoring. Just look, score a goal, game over. Look, I'm just telling you now, Patrick Berg is a quality player. His midfield partner, right, is like his foil. They got a striker on there. They will cause us problems. But if we score a goal, I want us to be pragmatic and play counter-attacking football. No need to take any risk whatsoever. Sit there, suck them in, and hit them on the counter-attack with Tel, Odebert, or Richie, or whoever is playing. That's it.
Anyone else?
I got to go.
I wasn't that impressed with their penalty shootout against Lazio, to be honest. I thought it was a very poor quality shootout.
Yeah.
And if we have players on the pitch like that started the game, I do think we've got quite a few, like at least the first 5 players on pens. I think they'll have the bottle to score them. It's just when you start to get lower down the squad.
Yeah.
But that's the same with everyone, I guess. I think if you want absolutely shitting bricks watching your team take penalties, then I don't know what kind of cojones you have, but I'd like a pair.
No, I'm just saying, look, penalties.
Come on, PSG. Come on,
it's a dicey game. But we are going to... Sean, anything you want to say on the penalties before we end off?
Nah, I just hope he doesn't get there. You know, we're good enough to not let it get there in the first place. Just score a goal and we're fine. I can't imagine that if we get a 3-goal cushion, I can't imagine them scoring 3 against us. And so we just need a goal, need a early goal, settle us all down. And then I might make the second half just in case I get an extended hour with old Helga. You know, it's going to be important. But yeah, no, I don't care about the pens, mate. It's not going to come to that. We'll do it in 90.
Well, I was more worried whether you and Henry be standing when it comes to penalties if you're planning on having that session in the airport before you go. So, I don't think these two boys can afford it to get the penalties. We
literally can't afford if it goes to like more than 5-5, if it goes to extra time in or sudden death in the penalties, Johnny, myself, and Henry might have to sprint back for the 10-minute run back to the airport. And I haven't done a 10-minute run in about 10 years. So I think that'll be a struggle, to be honest.
It's a whopping 10-minute walk to the.
Just go without me! Just go without me, Johnny! I'm going to stay here and meet Helga.
It's one of those things like, come on, Shorty, you can do it.
I can't do it anymore.
He's running down the snowbound runway with the door open.
No dogs on stage, you can get out there and out to the airport.
With their arms out. Come on, Shorty, you can do it.
I want to see in the match day vlog Sean on the back of a sleigh with dogs running ahead of him. That'd be absolutely brilliant. But guys,
you'll be able to follow me. I'll be posting regular stuff on my Instagram story. Maybe not so much on my Twitter. So if you do get onto my Instagram, I'll be posting more stuff there. To be honest, probably that's where you'll see sort of step by step or crash by crash as I find Sean lying in the snow with nowhere to go.
Please, I'll be the cheerleader. I'll be on top of the stand, just singing leading the Tottenham songs with a pint in one hand and some sort of Eskimo meal in the other.
Well, I'll definitely be looking out for you on the TV. That's for sure. Look, I can't wait for tomorrow. But guys, that's it from us here this evening. I will be over on our platform, Big Up. If you go to our community section, you'll find links there for previous ones. I'm on my own today. I'm not sure if I'll get the link up in time or not, but I am going to watch PSG versus Arsenal and hopefully see Arsenal dumped out of the Champions League. And then I can go on Twitter for the evening and have fun with them. As they say, Arsenal fan on a string. So, guys, that's it from us. As always, come on, you Spurs. A massive thank you to you guys at home. I'll see you back here tomorrow for the big fucking game. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.